have Squire. Everyone click got it, and then we can get started. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to MVP Office Hours. Today is May 5th, 2023, Cinco de Mayo, if you didn't know. So if you're not having tacos tonight, you're missing out, and you should definitely find a margarita. But that's my personal indulgence. So MVP Office Hours is the first and the third Friday of the month, generally speaking. Sometimes we nudge it, sometimes we have to cancel it because of other things that are going on. If you need to find us, you can find Dale or myself or Squire on LinkedIn and Twitter, and at MVP Office Hours on Twitter also. We also have a little website, mvpofficehours.info, and an email address that isn't really the best way to get a hold of us, but it's there. The best place to get everybody's general opinion about things is the success community. And do we have a link for that, Squire? Can we drop that in the chat?
Sure.
If you want to get a lot of people seeing the things right away, the success community is a place to drop that. There's also a lot of other resources out there, but you understand. Okay, so welcome to everybody. We're glad you're here. To all current and future MVPs, we ask that everyone participate, share your experience and insight and recommendations with the group, because the group think is way smarter than just one of us. And feel free to post the links like Squire did for me just now in the chat. And then we will gather these up and drop them into the deck that gets posted later. If you have a question, you can type it out in the chat so that you get your place in line, or you can just raise your hand and while we're on the call. We do recommend sharing your screen. However, please do not share data, sensitive data. We prefer a sandbox. We prefer a dev sandbox so that you're not identifying confidential things by accident, because this is being recorded and posted on YouTube if you weren't aware. So if you can't be recorded, you can check out the recording later, or you can just drop your camera and not share your screen. We love to have fun and be very informal, but please keep it professional. Remember that your employers, your future employers, your coworkers and future coworkers may or may not see what's going on this call. And so we encourage you to be authentic, but also professional. Registration is always available to you at bit.ly/MVPOH. And then the recordings are available, and we'll get those. Well, they're in the deck, so we'll get those to you. All right, the next call is May 19th. So in 2 weeks, we'll see everybody again. We do have some upcoming community events. We've got Mid-Atlantic Dreamin', we've got SunCal Dreamin', Texas Dreamin', the Tableau conference in Vegas. Is anyone going? That sounds exciting. And then Connections in Chicago. And I plan on being there, but I have to see how that's going to work out, because I do have plans that I gotta get to on the 8th. So we'll see how that shakes out, because it's the 7th and the 8th. Did you know that, Square? It's 2 days. It's 2 days.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's a 2-day conference, and it's gonna be jam-packed. But if you have other events that you're interested in, you can go ahead and check those out on the community-led events, trailhead.salesforce.com/community/events for more information. And let's see, the community groups, in-person and virtual, meeting invites, it's all there on the screen. To post a link to the YouTube channel where these recorded messages are posted. Yeah, we can do that. We can post that. The YouTube channel.
Gotcha.
You got it. Oh, you're so fast. All right. So Heather, there you go. In real time, right? Andrea, you have our first question about 10 random cases per user. And so do you want to explain that more for what you're looking for?
Yeah, so I have a request from our team. So we're using cases, and we essentially want to QA the work that's being done. Are we being, good customer service people, whatnot? And we want to do this on a weekly basis and have a random sampling of 10 cases per person, so per owner. In my perfect world, you would be able to not just limit a report by like, give me 10 records, whatever. You would be able to limit that by group. I will be happy to find and share the idea that's been up for 12 years to be able to do that. And so HANA Slack essentially suggested using Flow. So creating a field that would generate a random number. And I found that I Googled that and found it. I don't remember what the solution for that was. And then a QA date field, and essentially like looping through record, those 10 random per 10. The idea is essentially you kind of do loops, like you loop twice, you loop all the users, and then within that loop, you loop their cases. But that seems like a lot of work for a
Sure.
report.
I think the phrase that I keep hearing is, it sounds like you're trying to overcook the goose. Well, like, I guess I probably would have gone low tech with this and just used like an online randomizer for the case numbers. Like,
In terms of when you say an online randomizer, I mean, when you say an online randomizer, what do you mean?
just, plug in, like, you could put your case numbers from the previous week, like, into an Excel file and just use a randomizer and not have anything tied to it. It doesn't need to necessarily be in Salesforce, but that's not necessarily scalable. And if you want it to be happening in Salesforce, like you want to kind of like pop one of these cases into a queue, then you're going to have to do some more looping. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work if you think about what you're trying to do and all of the restrictions that you have and how those restrictions may change over time. It might be wise to just kind of like go with the flow and do it manually for a little while until you hit your stride with it.
Yeah, the problem is that's what they're doing now. They're going in and trying to like randomly pull cases, and it's twofold. It's pulling them randomly and also making sure that you're not QAing ones you've already QA'd. In thinking about it and talking about it with people, the other thought that we had was find the formula field to create a random-ish number, and then a QA date field that they can mark that it was QA'd. And then just have a report that pulls 10 records and let the person that's doing it change. It's not a massive team. So going in and being like, okay, run this as Tim, now see Sally's cases and updating that a few times is probably, I feel like, the medium between a fully manual and a fully automated process.
Can I ask a quick question? Like, so when you say QA, say more about what you're doing with the QA.
They're making sure that they're going, it's a person that is going through and manually, like, what kind of responses are we giving? What, like, it is a quality checking, like, our customer service from an internal perspective.
Got it.
So
Okay.
The actual QA process is not automated. It's just the pulling of random cases without duplicating efforts.
So what if you did something like, so you're going to have a random number generator in order to get random values. That makes sense. And that formula works. What about a screen flow? So screen flow, have it pick the rep, because you said you want to do it by person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then pick your rep. The next screen brings back the first 10 of the highest random numbers. And those are the 10 that you iterate through to do the QA, as well as indicate that you've QA'd them so they don't come back. And when you're done, then you can exit the screen flow and go to the next one, or go back and do it again. Like, you could have the screen flow do not only the organization, but actually let you do the QA from the screen flow. Then all you're really doing is just doing you're only leveraging a single random number generator and letting the flow do the heavy lifting of just selecting the first 10 that comes up.
Yeah, I'd find out more about the QA process, because I think we're digging into essentially like messages, which is on a different tab.
All right.
It's fine. It's not QAing it. They wouldn't really be able to, maybe I think that we're getting into more over engineering in terms of QAing it within the flow. I don't think knowing it's essentially looking, like I said, looking at their case comments. So you'd have to pull that in as well.
Okay. I think the thing I'm most concerned about it, and I'm not sure what your capacity is, but if you've got a flow that's doing a whole bunch of DML just so you can arbitrarily grab a couple of them, that seems really heavy-handed to do what you're talking about doing.
Yeah.
And random, honestly, is a terrible way to identify, like, to do QA. Like, there should be criteria that suggest these are what we QA and why, not just pull numbers out of a hat, because your sampling has no like bearing on why you're doing QA when you use a random number generator.
And that's why I need to dig in to figure out, like, that's why my thought is the report thing might be the way to go, because it's sort of, like I said, sort of a medium, and it's easy enough to change the filters on a report than it is to eventually go in and tweak a flow.
Well, I mean,
when requirements inevitably change, because they do.
I mean, and I think that's why I feel like you'd be better off having criteria that represents why you're doing a QA. Like, I'll make something up and say anything that's a high priority and in the last 5 days and that had more than 3 comments, or something. And why is that being QA'd? Because that's something that we want to make sure we're doing gap analysis on. If you use a random number generator, you might get 10 slam dunk cases. The QA on that means nothing. It's a wasted effort. And Tony, you have to run it again and hope you get it right next time. I mean, I think you could push back on the why to understand better what to deliver. And then you could give them the exact answer to say, here's the 10 that meet your requirements that you want to QA and understand why, and then build a process around it.
Yeah, I think my understanding of it now is they literally want random, like, spot checking to make sure that things aren't being checked on. So
I get it. I mean, I think you can still push back and ask why, but I mean, because then the last thing I'll offer is that if it really is random and it doesn't matter at all, then you're overthinking it. Then just use random number generator, pull the first 10 in a date range, and here's your random 10. They might mean nothing. Enjoy, right? I mean, have a QA checkbox that says it was done, so it filters it.
Right.
But the conversation should be about the output is, other than busy work, what are you trying to get out of it? So anyway, and then, because I'll ask one final thing, which is, if the QA is something along the line of, like, are they being completed correctly? That's a process change, not a QA step, right? Like, change the way you close cases if you need different data quality. If you're just making sure that people do an arbitrary good job on case closing, that's something else entirely.
Yeah. So cool. Thanks.
All right, we've got a question lined up from Matt. Record types. Oh, Matt, tell me about your record type woes.
It's I don't know if it's woes, but sure. Basically we have 2 kind of sets of record types for accounts. Basically, the long story short is that up until a point that we make a sale, accounts are controlled by Salesforce. Once the account is closed, NetSuite becomes the system of record, and it becomes a different record type, which is basically has like migrated to NetSuite as the record type. And why it's like that doesn't really matter. The question for the group is there a way to make a record type visible to users without allowing them to create it? Like, when you create an account and it asks you what record type you want it to be, is there a way to not have a record type available, but it is still, those records are still visible?
I feel like yes, the answer to that question is yes, but I'm trying to like rack my brain for how to do that. What do you
Yes,
got?
kinda, right? So if you use the native new button, it forces you to go through the record type screen. So the way to prevent that is to build your own new record type action or new record action that is a screen flow or a, you know, a record screen that
global
doesn't
action?
step through that record type choice.
You said there's only two?
What, oh, those are the two that come to mind. I mean, once
No, I meant
you-
there's only two record types, Matt.
It's like two sets of record types. It's like there's 3 different record types and they each have a before and after migrated
Yeah.
in that suite.
Definitely a screen flow, the way Squire was going on.
Yeah.
Unless
Because what you're
you
doing
want-
then is you're not using the native create, you're building your own flow, and now you can have, quite honestly, a better interaction anyway. The screen, in my opinion, the pick a record type and then fill in that screen is not as comfortable as the screen flow, and now you have full control.
Okay, thank you.
This is David
So
Chang.
Oh yeah, go ahead, David, sorry.
Yes, okay. I thought that if you took the record type out of the profile, they can't create that record type, but they can still see it and still
Yeah.
report on it.
Yeah. That's where I was gonna go. Removing a record type at the profile level does not make all records of that record type invisible. It just means that when they click the create new button for whatever that object is, that record type is not a viable option for them. But I create say we've got new business opportunity record type and renewal opportunity record type. You're not allowed to create a renewal. If I create a renewal and you have read access to the opportunity object, you'll see that record. You just can't create a renewal.
Will there be any challenges with, by limiting access to the record type? Will there be any challenges in, like, if for some reason a user needs to make a change of some sort? So like the record type would control pick list values, things like that. Like once it's converted,
You have just found the rub.
yeah,
That is the thing. If I create a renewal, you can see the renewal, but then it's on further review, it's like, well, actually, that's not a renewal. That's a cross sell or an upsell or something, some other opportunity record type. Now you've got to get someone who has the ability to select that, because if you click change record type, you're still going to be limited to the options of your profile. So now you just found the can of worms that needs to be opened. You're probably would, if you wanted to make it somehow doable by a user, now you're getting it to like a screen flow or something like that that would allow me to pick from a pick list or something that then triggers the flow. That, but even then, like I don't know, would the flow respect my profile record type limitations or not? Yeah. Thanks for opening a can of worms, Squire.
That's weird for Steve.
My first one of these I've made in like 2 years.
We're so glad you're here, Steve. We love it.
Well, and let me just caveat by saying that was exactly what I was hoping we'd talk about, and I didn't mean to throw you in the bus or you, David, either. So like, I think is it fair to say, based on I'll put words in your mouth, Steve, like the question of I want to hide a record type is a really easy question with a lot more questions that should be asked and responded to as far as process before we give a good answer.
Yeah, it's not a layup. It's where it definitely you want to play around with this, and this is definitely one for sandbox where you got to be like, all right, I'm going to log in as profile X. Can profile X do whatever they need to do for their job function? And can they do more than they should be doing for their job? Okay, profile X is good. Now profile Y, profile Z, and then there's always going to be that weird case, like everything is set up exactly perfectly, and then someone is like, well, actually this renewal is actually cross sell. Oh, we didn't think of that.
Yeah,
One other
it's-
question,
it's-
Matt, and it's It's. Why do you need two record types at all?
Actually, the whole problem you guys just laid out is a good thing, because we actually, once it goes to NetSuite, that whole point is that we don't want them to be able to change them. So when it goes to those new, record types, it actually has a page layout that's basically read only anyway. So it actually is kills two birds with one stone.
Except you can edit them in list view, right? Or you could edit them via report edit. If it's layout driven, then you're not-
It's working. Everything's working other than just not wanting to see the record types at the beginning.
Okay.
And I just tested it and it functioned as you guys described. So that was problem solved.
Well, I'm gonna push back on you. I mean, we don't have to answer it now, but just because you can't see it on the page layout doesn't mean you can't edit it somewhere else. If you're trying to lock a record, you need a page validation of some sort, and you might not need a record type at all. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I know, but our users are not clever enough to do that. So it's
You're gonna get one. You're
Yeah,
gonna get
famous
one.
last
Matt.
words. All right.
Yeah, you're gonna get one, and the last modified date
Is
is
that-
gonna be that person.
Yeah, and the problem is, not clever enough also means dumb enough to blunder into it. It's just like that scene in The Big Lebowski where he nails the 2x4 down to the floor to keep someone from breaking in, but the door opens outwards. Like that.
Classic. That's good. That's good. So there you go, Matt. We've got there's some gotchas out there. Don't all of our Salesforce users, there's always that one person who finds the hole in the bucket. They will find the hole in the bucket. They're gonna find it. And if you know it's there, they're gonna find it for sure.
yep. I'll keep that in mind. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But in the short term, thank you guys for helping me solve that.
All right, like it last modified date changed if record type equals NetSuite.
Yep.
I mean, I'll not to get too far off track, but admin horror story. I had users call me one day years ago because like all their data just disappeared. Couldn't find my accounts list view empty, my opportunities list view empty, my contacts, my leads, every my list view was empty. And then they're like, I don't know what what happened, blah blah. And I thought I did something wrong. I was like, we hadn't been an admin that long. I thought I must have done like a mass upload using data loader and had the account ID, owner ID sorted the wrong way. It must have been me. So I'm going crazy trying to find the bad file, undo what I did. Nothing's making sense. I poke around. And I was looking at a report and I saw like the username twice, like repeated. And I was like, well, why is that? And then click on it. I'm in the user detail record. And I'm like, why doesn't the email match on this user detail record? Why doesn't it match on the user detail record? Then I'm looking at the user detail record and it says last modified by. And I started, that was the loose thread. I unravel it. I get these two jokers on the phone. Turned out they were trying to transfer one single opportunity record from one user to the other user on their own. Couldn't figure out how to do it. Didn't know to click the change owner link on the record. Didn't think to look in the online help and training. Didn't think to call me. So the solution that these two clowns came up with, and I just did the biggest air quotes in history when I said solution. The user went into his own user detail record and replaced his first and last name with the other person's first and last name. And that was their solution to changing the owner on one record.
Wow. It's amazing.
I never thought I would have to create a validation rule on the user detail record, on the user object, to prevent people from changing their first and last name to somebody else's first and last name.
That's
I was wrong.
amazing. That is amazing.
You'll be amazed at what the stuff that people will MacGyver rather than doing something like, I don't know how to do this. Let me look in the online help. I don't know how to do this. let me just reach out to my Salesforce admin. No, I'm gonna MacGyver this thing. No, let me just, I don't have a hammer, but let me just take my 6-gun, grab it by the barrel and pound this nail in. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, Steve. Oh, you've got the best. You've got the best users ever. Oh, that's fantastic. So, all right. So I think we got Matt's record type situation figured out. We've talked about some of our users being absolutely amazing in the way they approach problem solving. Do we have any other questions?
Nothing in the chat.
I see that there's nothing in the chat, which makes me think that like everyone's had a fantastic week. Nothing's gone wrong. Nothing's got you scratching your head. You're all here to share your like brilliance with everyone else. This is amazing.
I
Jack,
have a question.
Oh, that's great because I was ready to start doling out work. Like,
Okay.
what you got?
So the issue that I'm dealing with right now is we have some flows with scheduled paths, right? And there's a lot of complicated stuff that goes on. It's basically after so many days in a workflow, a status and substatus need to change based on some criteria, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, that kind of stuff, right? All that works fine to some degree. We got some bugs we're working through, but I wanted to write some test cases for those. So I went into Apex, started, writing some Apex test cases. And I found out pretty quickly that those like schedule paths from the flow will not run or can't be, we can't make sure that they run, even if you wrap in like start test and end test or start test and stop test. So I was wondering, so then I kind of went to the next level. I said, well, I haven't done any flow tests yet. You go through the debug and create a flow test from it. But then it looks like that actually has to use data within the org itself. I know it rolls it back and everything, but as you're moving up through environments, I don't want to have like dummy accounts and stuff like that I can point to as part of the process for the test. So I was just wondering if anybody's dealt with that or knows any sort of way around it.
I have responses, but I need to type before I lose my brain. Anybody else want to jump in?
Well, I can tell you this is way out of my ballpark right now.
Can I ask if you're creating tests because you want to test or because you feel the need to have these tests and it's part of like just being a good admin to have tests available to run these things as they change in the future and stuff like that?
We're still pre-implementation. This is kind of the biggest piece of we're building the implementation now. This is kind of the biggest piece that really the reason is we have a lot of things where somebody goes in and changes something and it breaks a part of the flow. Because like I said, it's pretty complicated what's happening to some degree. So I really just want to have tests for all of these edge cases so that they can be checked as we're, doing deployments. We run the unit.
Got it. That makes sense. And the goal is to avoid having to create actual dummy accounts to run the flow tests.
Yeah, I would like to not do that. I know that seems like that would be possible, but then there's a lot of I guess there's kind of a lack of what I would want to be able to check in the flows as well. So and I'm just more comfortable in Apex, to be honest, but I haven't really done any of the flow tests myself yet.
So really quick, the part that I think you're probably asserting when you write it in Apex is that I'm going to assume like your schedule, like maybe you're creating a task or something, but 10 days later or whatever, right? You can't actually test for that because it hasn't happened. Are you asserting that the scheduled task, like so in workflow, it was called, what was the table called? It held a record that said on this day and time, this is going to happen. And you could assert that was inserted.
Gotcha. So really,
and then scheduled paths, I think it does something similar in like the interview object, but I'd have to do some quick digging.
Okay. Yeah, that is good to know. Really, what happens on ours is we have a date called finalized due date. This is pretty much a census. And so someone comes in, fills out a census, some stuff goes along with that. And then they gets a finalized due date that is the last day of the next month. So if I insert, one of these censuses with a finalized due date of, say, 90 days ago or something, I have a path based on one day after the finalized due date, 30, 60, 75. That's what the scheduled paths are based off, is that finalized due date.
Mhm.
So at that point, that trigger kind of checks a few things, and then if it meets the certain criteria, it changes the status and the substatus of this object. And it's a custom object, but it changes the status and substatus. So really what I would like to assert is I insert a record, say 90 days in the past of the finalized due dates 90 days ago. It should be to the status should go to past due and the substatus should be delinquent, something like that.
Right.
That's what I would like to assert. But like I said, I know that I know now that those scheduled paths don't actually execute, even if, today is 90, 95 days after. I would, if I do it through the UI, immediately change the finalized due date to 90 days ago, after, a minute or two of waiting, that status and substatus does get changed immediately. So that's kind of the situation that I was looking at.
Yeah, because what's happening is that scheduled interview is I'll see if I can try to find before we're done here. It creates basically a timestamp thing that it's checking for a scheduled flow, like scheduled occurrence.
Yep.
So when you're in debug, or if you run it for today, you run it so that it's going to fire today. It'll see itself once it's inserted that record and then continue on. Yeah, the testing of that can be, you don't want to do it with flow. Anyone else remember seeing I don't think they even recommend using flow test on scheduled flows. It's only recommended for record triggered and something else. I was trying to find that as well.
Yeah, sorry. So it is a record trigger flow with a scheduled path. Maybe I wasn't clear about that.
Yeah,
So,
no, I'm sorry. But I mean, the scheduling is the trick, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, so I don't believe, can you run a subflow from a scheduled path?
I'm not sure.
Because you could run a test on the flow that you're referring to as a subflow from the schedule. That now you can test the actual iteration and test the schedule, what triggers it, and just separate the two.
Oh yeah, I gotcha. Okay, that makes
I don't
sense.
remember if you can do that. I mean, I don't know if you can call a subflow from a scheduled path.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I'm not sure. That's a good idea though.
But I think if you tear open the metadata API and find where the scheduled paths event, it's not an event, but is sitting waiting to occur, you could assert that with Apex and you'd know that it's waiting there to trigger. And then you'd have to then almost mock the triggering event to see if it does work after that date, because you're not actually asserting that at all. That, that's internal. So
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I can try that out.
I'll if I can find that stuff while we're chatting, or this afternoon, I'll post it in Success if I can find those objects for you. But keep us posted, because that's an important testing question as we go stronger and stronger into flow. All of us should be thinking about testing in appropriate situations. Jack, I liked where your head was at, but we should make sure we address not only should you test it, but how do you test it? So.
Yep, gotcha. Thank you.
What else
Jack
we got?
came back, which means he solved his pipeline issue from 2 weeks ago that we talked almost the whole hour about. So I'm waiting for you to give us that. This is how I think that it's awesome, and DevOps is great.
Solve is strong words, but I take people's advice, and I reevaluated what my organization needed ourselves and what would work for us, and reduce things down to a single pipeline, which helped. And we've also just been in the habit of creating many work items and really segmenting and parting out everything so as to not leave open items in our pipeline, which allows us to constantly sync before we start up a new work item. So everything's staying a lot more tight that way. Still haven't found out a good way to run two concurrent pipelines and merge them together without just dealing with tons of conflicts, but maybe that's just the nature of the beast. So anyway, thanks everybody again for spending the time and talking about it with me. I do sincerely appreciate it, and it was helpful.
Did you get a response from the success group at all? I know someone forwarded your post along.
Not of any meaningful sort, no. Although I haven't checked it in about 4 or 5 days, to be honest. So if somebody posted there recently and I am saying no, now I apologize.
There's also a bug queue in GitHub tied to the overarching project. You can post there, and sometimes they respond differently than in Success, but that was a little trickier to get to.
I've also just been spending a lot more time in Git, which I found has been very helpful and enlightening, understanding what is actually going on there and how it relates to Salesforce's DevOps pipeline, and being able to correct things over in GitHub and have those then fix my problems in DevOps so that I can promote things through that previously I wasn't able to. So a little bit of time learning that paid off as well. So anybody who's having trouble in DevOps and you don't know GitHub very well, I suggest spending a day or two really trying to get the basics of GitHub down.
And may I ask how you did that? Because there's a couple things that are recommended as far as, well, first of all, there's a couple trails, but there's also a really nice welcome to GitHub video series that's built into GitHub's website. Where did you do your work?
Well, I've been using GitHub for the better part of a decade, and I've just been one of those users that uses it because he has to and does the bare minimum in there. So I finally just sat down and started. I mean, I write command prompts to do, Git pulls and things like that, but I never really understood what I was doing when I was typing those things out. I'm just following the instructions that I find online over the years or things that I know work. So just actually, and just even knowing, like, when you make a change in a development environment in Salesforce and commit, what that means in the sense of GitHub versus what it means in DevOps. And it's not an exact, if you change something in one, it's going to immediately reflect in the other and vice versa kind of a thing. So I did take a look at the trailhead though, and did find it informative, and would also recommend people take a look at that if they are starting out in the DevOps thing. But
That's awesome. Thanks, Jack.
Nothing in the chat. You guys are brilliant this week. I'm so proud of
Yeah,
you.
everybody's
I'm
really good at
so
their
proud
job.
of all of you.
also, just to chime in, you can add a subflow to a scheduled path, as far as I know, on a record triggered thing. So if just parting out your functionality into a separate flow for writing a test for will work for you, Leiden, I think that might be a good option.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so it sounded like the recommendation is to take the functionality, move that into a subflow, have that subflow be called from the scheduled path, and also be able to call it kind of through Apex directly to make sure that the functionality is that kind of squire what you were suggesting.
Cool. All right.
Okay, I'll try that out.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, I have a question. I just can't type fast enough.
That's okay, Kathy. Go ahead.
No, just all this talk about DevOps. I mean, I will admit, I get it in theory. I get a lot of this stuff in theory, but we've installed DevOps into 1 or 2 orgs, and I'm just trying to understand, because from what I understand, you need to use GitHub as part of the whole process. But I'm being told, no, actually, you don't need to use GitHub. What's the right answer? So
yeah, so you have to have a repository for DevOps to work. GitHub is the only one that's available now. Bitbucket and another one. I can't think what the other one is, but there's 2 more coming down the roadmap. But right now, GitHub is the only option. You have to have an account to set up your pipeline. That GitHub account holds your source repository, all of your branch storage. DevOps basically just does the heavy lifting, like what Jack was talking about, of doing push and pulls, merge conflicts. Like it gives you the admin, the interface that feels like Salesforce, but it's leveraging GitHub. It will leverage Bitbucket. It will leverage the other one that I can't think of right now.
Okay,
So
Yeah,
I'm curious
that's-
who's saying not.
I won't say.
Okay. Well, I mean, and the reason I ask is because depending on who that is, the documentation is very clear. Implementation, like step 3 is like,
Mhm.
you have to have a GitHub account and here's how you
Yeah.
connect. So,
Okay, that's what I keep reading, and
Yep.
it's like, no, you can just use it with scratch arcs and sandboxes, and I'm like going, no, I'm pretty sure you need a GitHub account to go with it.
Yeah.
And
so, and I think that's probably the gap is that, and it's kind of what Jack was talking about, is like, from a user's perspective, it just feels like it's sandboxes talking to sandboxes, and you can be blind to what's happening under the covers. So that person might not realize that the picture of the 3 sandboxes in production feels safe, like it's just box to box and sandbox to sandbox, but all you do is crack on with the documentation, and you can talk about how it's doing all this work underneath the covers and how it's leveraging the CLI, and I mean, like, or not CLI, but SFDX. So yeah.
okay, cool, thank you.
And if you want, I can give them a call. Just send them a number. I can straighten them out.
Okay. I may do that.
Squire, I love when you play the heavy. I love it.
Yeah, there you go. Got to rough somebody up.
Well,
Verbally,
no,
of
not
course.
rough, just gently guide in the right direction.
Okay, perfect. That's much more. Yeah, that's the better way to say it. I don't have to
Gently
take you
explain
behind
that the logic that they have is failing and Squire's is better. Kidding.
I like that, yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
Thank you, David. GitLab is the third one.
Okay,
And I
There you
don't think either of those have been roadmap yet. I mean, they're on the roadmap, but I don't think we've seen a date as far as the cutover yet. So GitHub's your friend right now. Who else?
I love this. I love this. You guys, I want to hear about everyone's like celebrations and successes, because like you guys are just knocking it out of the ballpark this week.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a problem every week, right? Could you tell us about something cool you did?
Anyone pass a cert this week? I don't know.
I rescheduled one that I failed miserably, and
Hey,
I'm terrified of now.
I'm kind of multitasking right now, and I just had a question come up, which, does anybody know, can you launch a flow in a modal from a hyperlink on a record?
I think there's unofficial Salesforce stuff that lets you do it, but natively, I think the answer is no. It opens in a new tab or window every time, because I've
Okay.
struggled with that for a while myself. That's off the top of my head, though.
Okay. I think that's what I think also, but I was just curious. I'm like, oh, I'm trying to do this right now. I wonder if anybody knows if it's possible.
Sorry, me again. I have another question.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Kathy, and then
Tell
David's
us
gonna
about
jump in. Because we've got time.
No, with all our hyperlinks, it made me think of email templates, which made me think of attachments to email templates in Lightning. I have a client who we've, put the files, we put an attachment in, and she sent them out individually to the contacts because just the object we needed to use to do the merge fields couldn't do it, or didn't have another way to do it, or at least not yet. But she found that some of the emails went out with the attachment and some didn't. So I'm just wondering, did I miss something in setting up this attachment? Or is it, if you send it to more than one person, it doesn't go to anybody? Like if you send it to a contact and a CC contact and a BCC contact. Huh, okay.
yeah.
That's the way I kind
I
of
got
felt
some-
when I got the
Some great answers. Huh, that's a head scratcher. Let me think about that for a minute. You said they were sending them individually though?
Yeah, they're like by, yeah, by individual records.
Right, contact by contact, they're sending out this email template.
Yeah.
And the email template has an attachment baked in.
Yeah, it's
And
sitting in
sometimes
the- yeah, it's sitting in the related files.
And sometimes it goes and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
Is it possible that they're not receiving it because it's getting blocked? Or is it, you think it's not going? Can they check the sent items, or I guess?
I checked a few of the cents, and
Mhm.
some of them actually, I mean, it says in it that attachment, the bank file
Mhm.
supposedly attached. And some said, no, it wasn't there, and some were there, and people, some of them received it. And some of them said, nope, we never received it. But I don't see what, it's the client of the client, so I don't get to see what they actually saw
Right.
to see if they just missed it, or maybe it came through as a link.
Mhm.
It shouldn't, it's not big enough. I mean, when I tested it, it came through just fine, but as an attachment. But I'm just wondering if it perhaps came through as a link, or it could be just different. I don't know. I'm grasping at straws.
No,
even
because
at
that's a
email
thing too,
providers.
though, that the attachments go through as like a link to the attachment. Where there's
Yeah, because I know that if you send it as a mass, like a, like a list email, that it will go through as a link. But like I said, these were individuals, so that's why. And like I said, it was hit and miss, and it was the exact same template.
right. Interesting.
Okay.
I
So it's-
I know that like incoming mail to me, attachments are wildly not coming through. And I've got to go like ask for them from our stuff, because we've got a lot of protections in place for our email. But
Oh,
could be a situation. I mean, we had a situation where we had people who couldn't, who were like getting this like reset their password email, and the link wasn't working. It would say that the link had already been used. It's because they're, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's like the email thing.
Client.
The email client is actually clicking on the link to see if it's a safe link, and then the link is no good. And so,
oh, is that, you just answered another question.
yeah,
that I
so
didn't even know I had.
there's a setting, and Kathy, if I think about it, I'll ping you where I found it. But there's a setting that we had to change because we have that email client, and we assume that many other of our portal users have a similar email client that click the link for you before you get it, and so then it's no longer valid. So I don't know. I mean, Outlook is fun.
Yeah, we had a similar problem with email links, and I'm not 100% sure that it even works if you've changed that setting, but that's because email is fun, like you said, and it's hard to know exactly what's going wrong when you have people who are using Google and Yahoo and Outlook and AOL and Verizon and all different things, and you don't know.
Sarah, the thing that tipped us off with that is that it was this never happened to users who had free mail.
Yeah.
It was always folks that were coming from an industry, like a large industry,
Yeah.
well-known email domain. And I was like, well, they probably have some pretty solid email protections in place. And then it was happening to people internally. I was like, no, this is something. This is something, and we found it, and I was really glad we found it. So Salesforce support, by the way, came through with that winner. That was
yeah, I think it's like do not expire links or something like that.
Yeah.
It's on the password settings or security settings somewhere.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't have 100% confidence that it works for everybody. I think some
When it
emails are
comes up
still
again, I will be like, see, we are. but it hasn't
Yeah.
happened again. And it was happening sporadically and we couldn't nail it down. And we're like, we did this. It was all supposed to be working. Why isn't it working again?
Yep.
So anyway, you guys want to like see Joy like get frustrated? I go round and round circles with the business about this. And they're like, no, it's not working. I'm like, but we didn't change anything.
About a week ago, people were getting bounce backs when they were sending emails to an address of ours, camp@cdss.org, and they started just after we sent out a whole bunch of emails from Salesforce. And so I don't know if that's coincidence or if we got flagged as spammers or what, but it's been a nightmare to try to fix. So I'm with you on the email is the most frustrating part of my job.
The email sends, I feel like there are a lot of people that need to understand like the ramifications of sending out mass emails way better than they do. And there's a lot of rules out there that our marketing folks should all know, but maybe the sales folks don't all know. And then the sales folks want to send out the mass emails like marketing, but they don't understand the rules and what happens if we get our hands slapped. So there's this.
Add in a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
really-
This was
they barely
programs people, not
understand
even
Salesforce.
salespeople, but programs people.
Yeah, that one's,
Fantastic.
there should definitely be a pop-up warning for those list emails and the mass emails. That's just like, hey, by the way, you know that if you just click this, you might shut down all outbound emails from your company, and that would be your fault. Are you sure? And then ask like 3 okays, and yeah.
Yeah.
We
Did your CMO approve this? Like, are you
Right.
sure?
Well, the weirdest part is we could send emails to people, but they couldn't send them to us. So like their email program had flagged us as a spammer, but like not for receiving mail, just to sending to. It's very bizarre. I still haven't totally sorted it out.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Like you guys were blocked to send to? Yeah.
Yeah, it was
that's
really
cool.
weird.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe they didn't have a job anymore. I don't know. Crazy things happen. Crazy things. Do you know if anyone ever really got shut down? Is this urban legend, Rochelle?
No, 100% people have been shut down. Granted, you can pay a lot of money to get your blacklist removal and you have to go through a bunch of steps, but yeah, you can be blocked pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yep.
Oh, well, hi guys. I just keep hearing about it, and then when you call up Salesforce, they treat it as don't worry, and I'm like, I'm worried. I lay in bed at night and worry about things. We've been on the phone with Salesforce as well as our website developer and a couple other things, trying to figure out why our emails keep being identified as spam. They have a nice banner at the top that says either spam or that kind of thing. And we found out that a lot of it was being triggered by our unsubscribe link. So when you have a customer that hits unsubscribe and they're supposed to add their email, which ours was doing, I guess that was a Google no-no. So now what they gave me is literally 2.5 pages of code that I'm supposed to do to ensure that the person doesn't have to actually enter their email address. It's supposed to just go ahead, you hit unsubscribe, the user then does, I guess it recognizes their actual email address without them actually typing it, thinking it's a bad actor. So yeah, I'm gonna jump on that real quick.
Oh man, that sounds like something to keep you up at night. And being aware is actually the first, like knowing is half the battle, right? Gosh, G.I. Joe, how are you doing? But if you know about this, then you're not going to like blindly step into a pile of mud.
Oh, I blindly stepped in that pile of poop already. Yeah.
But at least you had a clue. At least you had a clue about it, right? That's the thing. Like, it's one thing to go for a walk and step in that without knowing what's happening, right? And it's another thing entirely to be like, I think I'm going to be able to step over it, but then you don't, and well, then we learn. But we are coming up on 2 minutes to the top of the hour. And so if anyone has any other questions, thoughts, celebrations, excitement, I'm so excited that, wait, where'd it go? Y'all went fast. Yumi, congratulations on finishing up that agile methodologies. That's awesome. And then Matt, you just did the BA, is that right? Way to go. The new sales certified salesperson, and I'll never be able to name it because, well, I got Sales Cloud in my head, but if you haven't taken a look at the trail mix, you should, especially if you work with salespeople. It's up to you whether you want to take the test or not, but I'll probably take it because I talk to a lot of people that are in that space. And I want to know what it looks like so that I can make suggestions, but
I'd also like to throw out there before we're out of time, if you're not paying attention, they recently went from like 6 to about 20 Flow super badges. So if you like super
Amazing.
badges, there's a ton of Flow content available in the last, say, 8 weeks.
that's amazing. I'm
Yeah.
excited about that.
They're fun too. They're really well done, I think. With the exception of one that is painfully dumb, so.
This is the trail mix for the certified sales representative. Especially if you're new to working with a sales team in Salesforce, this is going to be huge for you because just getting everybody on the same page. The rubber ducky badges were always my favorite, but that's because I came from sales. Anything else, anybody? It's just Cinco de Mayo. Go get yourself some tacos and margaritas and, enjoy a Friday afternoon. I'm looking at like 75 degrees outside in Chicago. I'm so excited. To like maybe take my computer back outside. Like
Or leave it inside and just go outside. That's what I'm gonna do.
I mean, I think that's what Taco would prefer. That's what Taco the dog would prefer for sure. So
Yeah, he thinks it's his day. He keeps saying it's Taco Day.
I know I hear him, but he's just making noise outside. He's not ready to barge the door open. So
All right, well, we're at 2.
adios.
Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Joy, it was great to see you again.
Bye, Squire. I miss seeing you.
So,
And-
someday.
Yeah, someday soon. I'll be at Connections.
Hi, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye. Oh.